Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I am going to show you how to create the logic behind your login form using MERN stack. So let's start. So what I will do in this video is, I will create a session, I will store the value of the user after login, and I will display that username after the login in the home page. If you don't know, previously I have created these two videos. One is login and sign up using MERN stack. This video will contain a design, how to create the design you will get from this video. And to know the logic behind the sign up form, you have to go to this video, registration form using MERN stack. I will put the link of these two videos in the description. And also you have to know that how to connect your Node.js application or express over Node.js application with MongoDB Atlas. After watching this video, how to connect Node.js with MongoDB Atlas using Mongoose, you will get to know the connection between the Node.js application and the MongoDB Atlas. After watching all three videos, you can easily come to this video, how to create the login form, and then you will get the logic very easily. For now, I will show you how my database looks. I have created this database user credentials, and inside that I have created this collection users. Whenever I sign up, the email, name and password will be stored inside this collection users, and each time a user is created, it will be stored in the collection as a document. After registering a number of users, a number of documents will be created and stored inside this collection users, and this collection is stored inside the user credentials. This was our index.js file. Here I have imported the express mongoose, chords, bcrypt.env and the model. So this was our user model. So if I go inside the model folder, inside my server folder, and I open the user.js file, you can see that this is the mongoose schema. Here I will store the name, email, password, and using this schema I will send my name, email and password of a newly created user to the MongoDB database. And I will export this user model, and after this I will go to my index.js, which is the server file. Here I will import this model, and this is my sign up logic. I have created this. I taught you in the previous video. Please go and check there. So if the existing user already exists, then I will show the error email already exists, or else I will hash the password and I will store the hashed password in my database, and the new user will be created. Now what's left is to create the login logic. Once a user signs up, he can now log in into the application. For that, I have to create the login logic. I will use app.post. I will copy it from this sign up. I will go inside. And here I will use app.post, and the route for this login will be /login. In the front end, whenever I will click on the login button, a function will be triggered and it will send the email and password to the backend. In the backend, this app.post function will work, and inside it I will create. For now, let's keep it as it is, and let's come to the front end, that is login.jsx. I will come to my client folder. As you can see, this is my client folder. Inside the components folder, which is under src folder, I have login.jsx. Inside the login.jsx, as you can see, these are the two text fields. In the front end, this text field will enter email and this will enter password. So beside the text field, I will give name equals to email, and for the password field, I will give the name equals to password. Now to send the email and password, I have to store the email and password in a variable and send it to the backend. For that, I will use the React hook useState. Before returning it, I will define two useStates, one for the email and another for the password. So const email set email equals to useState, and it will be imported from React. As you can see, import useState from React. Similarly, for password also, const password set password useState. Okay, so what it does is, this email is the current state, so this email variable will contain the final value of the email, and this password is also the current state. It will contain the final value of the password, and these two are the functions. So this set email and set password will be used to change the value of this text field. So as we enter a certain email or certain password, if we again change it, the final value will be changed, and this function will change the final value of the current state. Now, how to store the email and password in the email and password variables? I will use the function onChange beside the text field. So as soon as I change the value inside the text field, a function will be triggered. Using the set email function from the use state, I will change the email, and what value I will send? I will send the value of the target. So e.target.value. So the value from the target field will be stored in the final email variable using the set email function. For the password also, using the set password function, I will change the final value of the password. So these two functions will change the final value of the email and password in these two variables. As I click on the login button, this button, a function should be triggered, and that function name will be handle login. Beside form, I will use onSubmit equals to handle login. Now let's define the function. So const login or handle login, and now I will send the target value to this function, and I will prevent the default behavior. I will use e.preventDefault to prevent the default behavior of the form submission. Then I will use axios.post. Why I am using Axios is because I want to send the data from the front end to the back end, and to do that I have to use Axios. And I will send to the backend in this particular URL. So the backend is running on port 3001. As you can see, server is running on port 3001. And on which particular route it should go? It should go to the login route. After that, I will send email and password to the backend. This email and password comes from here, where I use the useState React hook, and I stored the email and password in these two variables. Then I will use the then function, and I will use the catch function to catch the error. Now let's stop here. Inside the then function, I will deal with the response coming from the backend. But before that, let's define the backend of the login logic. Here I come to index.jsx file. In the index.jsx file, I have already used this function app.post to get the post data from the front end in the login route. /login is the particular route, and from here I will use asynchronous JavaScript to get the request and response. So the requested data is the email and password. So I will get the email and password as the request body. So request.body, and I will store the email and password from this request body inside two variables. So const email, password. I am using array destructuring to store the email and password from the request body. Then I will check whether the particular email exists in the database or not. To check that, I will take a variable const user equals to, I will await for the particular check. So I will use this keyword await, and I will use the user model, which I have already defined. As you can see, inside the model folder, I have used the user model, and I have exported it from there. So I will use the user model to check in the database whether this particular email exists. To check that, I have to use the find one function, and I will check whether the email exists or not. If the user exists, then this user will have some value, so it will not be null. So if user exists, this block will be generated, or this block will be executed. Else, if the user doesn't exist, a response will be sent to the front end. So res.status, and the status code 401 will be sent to the front end along with the JSON message that password does not match. And inside this if user, so if user exists with this particular email, then we will first extract the password. So const password match. So I will take this variable, and I will store the comparison value of the current password and the already stored password which matches the particular email. So I will use the await function again to wait for the particular function to complete, as I am using asynchronous JavaScript here. and I will decode the value of the current password fetched from the database and the password which came from the client side. So bcrypt.compare function I will use to compare both the password. This is the current password, and the password from the database will be user.password. We will check that if the password match is true, then what we will do, in the front end I will send a response, so response.json, and I will send this message success. So if the password matches, then I will send this particular response to the front end, and if the password doesn't match, then I will send a particular status code res.status 401.json, and here I will pass the message password does not match. Oh sorry, I have previously used this message in the wrong else part, so I have to use the password does not match in this else part. So if the password does not match, I will send this particular response as the error, and if the user does not exist, I have to pass in the else part that no records found. No records found. So make this correction, and the whole part I will enclose inside a try catch block. So try, I will keep the whole login backend logic inside the try block, and in the catch block I will catch the error if any, and I will send this particular response 500 along with the JSON message which contains the error message. So that's it. So we completed the login logic in the backend. So after this app.post function is executed, a particular response will be sent to the client, and according to that response the client will log in or it will not allow the person to log in. So where we left previously is we left the then part. After I send the email and password to the backend, I didn't do any execution. So after I use the axios.post function to send the email and password to the backend have responded with some response, and it sent the response back to the front end. So we will get that response in the variable result, and from that response we will check that if the response data contains the word success or not. So if you remember, this success response will be sent to the front end only if the login is successful, that is the password also match and the email matches. So if the response data is success, then what we will do, we will navigate to the home page. The home page lies inside the components folder, so we will navigate inside the home page. And this navigate I forgot to instantiate. This navigate comes from the use navigate React hook, and we will define it inside the navigate variable. So I will use the use navigate function. This use navigate function will be imported from React router DOM. So this function will be used to navigate to different routes inside the application. And after that, in the else part, if the result data does not match, or if the result is not success, if the login is not successful, then what we will do, we will display an alert to the user, and the alert will show that login failed, user does not exist. The last thing we forgot to do is we forgot to import the Axios. So I have to import the Axios from Axios. So import Axios from Axios. So we are done with the login logic for now without the session. Let's see the output. As we can see, we are in the login page. Here I will enter an already created user. So let me go to the database to see. As you can see, under the user credentials database, I have a collection users, and inside it I have one user created with the name R and email r@gmail.com. So I will give this particular email here, r@gmail.com, and somehow I remembered the password because it's the same as this first letter of the email, which is R. Let me log in and see whether I can go to the home screen or not. As we can see, the home is displayed here and I am in the home screen currently. You can see the URL. It navigated to this home URL. Now, what if I want to display the name of the user inside this application when I log in? So I have to create a session. I have to store the user data in the session, and I have to retrieve the user data from the session and display it in the home. Now we will do that. Before starting the authentication procedure, let me give you a brief overview. session will lie on the server side and cookie will lie on the client side. For the first time when the user tries to log into the application, he or she will enter the details, and if the details are correct, a session will be created and stored on the MongoDB database. Sessions are a way to store information on the server side that is tied to a specific user. So a session begins when a user logs in or interacts with the website and ends when the user logs out or the session times out. This session data is stored on the server. Typically, a unique identifier or session ID will be created and stored in a cookie on the client side, which is then used to retrieve the session data from the server. So, first time to access the page, as you can see, it will create a session and then the session will create a session ID and it will store the session ID in the form of cookie. And we can access the user information from the session on the server side and from the cookies on the client side. Let me show you the MongoDB Atlas. So, as a session will start, it will create the session on the MongoDB store. So we will use something called Mongo store to create the session and save on the collections inside the database. And here, as you can see, session ID, which will be stored in the cookies in the client side. And using this, we can get the user information and display on the home page after we log in. And this is the expiration time, as you can see, original max age. And it is set to 1 day. So after 1 day, these cookies will expire and we will have to log in again. So cookies are stored on the client side. They can be set to expire after a certain period or persist indefinitely depending on how they are configured. In many web applications, cookies are used to store a session ID or other identifying information on the client. This session ID is then used by the server to retrieve the corresponding session data stored on the server side. You can research a bit about this session and cookies and how to do the authentication and then come to this video to get the process clearly. Let's go to the index.js file. So this is my index.js file. Before starting the session, I have to give the origin to the course. For that, I have to set the origin to the front-end URL. If you remember, in the environment variables, I have this variable front-end URL and I have pasted the front-end URL here, as you can see, 5173. This URL I got from this application, as you can see, localhost 5173. So the React application is running on 5173 and this is our front-end URL. So we have to tell the cross-origin resource sharing, which is CORS, that the origin here will be the front-end URL and we have to give credentials true. Credentials true is used in the client request to send cookies and other credentials. The server must be configured to accept and process these credentials properly. Now let's create our session. Below the app.listen function, I will start creating my session. So here at first I will use the app.use function. Inside it I will use the session. So the app.use session is a middleware which is essential for managing user sessions in our Express.js application. It will allow us to store session data securely by configuring options like secret, resave, save, uninitialize, store, and cookie. We can tune how sessions are handled. We can see as we go on. Then, at first we will set the secret. What is the session secret? This is a secret key which is used to sign the session ID cookie. As you can see in the .environment variables, I should provide a session secret. So I will just copy this, which I just gave session secret, and I should create it on the environment variables because I am accessing it from process.env, that is the environment variable file. And the session secret, I can give any random alphanumeric value. So I can give 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, etc. Next, I will use resave false. This option controls whether the session is saved back to the session store even if it was never modified. So what we will do here is we will create our session and we will store it in our MongoDB database. So we will store our session in our Mongo store. Setting it to false improves performance by preventing unnecessary session updates. I will do the save uninitialized as true. This option will control whether uninitialized sessions are saved to the store or not. Setting it to true helps to ensure that session is stored when it is created, even if it hasn't been modified. Next, I will use the Mongo store. So store equals to will be mongo store.create, and inside this MongoDB database, as you can see, let me show you. So previously we had this user credentials, right? As you can see, I have another database named user cred. Here I have this session collection created. So this is another project where I also save the session in this MongoDB store. Similarly, in our user credential database also, beside the user, there will be also another collection named Mongo store or session. And in this session, the current session user data will be saved. So inside the Mongo store.create, I will give the Mongo URL. It is process.env.mongo URI. Why I am giving this? Because we want to create a session collection inside this Mongo URI, that is the MongoDB Atlas database, where we will create or store the session data each time we log in. Then we will set the time until which the cookie should be saved in the session. For that, we will give the max age 24 into 60 into 16 to 1000. So 16 to 1000 will be 1 minute, and into 60 will be 1 hour. 1 hour into 24 hours will be 1 day. Now, since we have used a session and Mongo URI, but we have not initialized this. For that, we will go here and we will initialize our session. We will require the module express session. So express session is a library which we will use to create session. Then we will also need Mongo store, which comes from the library Connect Mongo. So Connect Mongo is a library which will be used to create a Mongo store, which is a collection in the MongoDB Atlas where we will store the session data. But we have not installed these two libraries. So at first we have to install it. npm install. I will copy this express session. I will paste here. Another one is Connect Mongo. Let's enter. Let's save the index.js file. As you can see, the server got restarted and the server is running on port 3001 connected to MongoDB. Next, I will send the user details to the front end. For that, in the login function app.postLogin, along with the success message, we will also send the user detail to the front end. For that, I will use request.session.user. So a session will be created, and there inside the user, we will extract the user details and we will store the user ID in the variable ID, name inside the variable name, and email inside the variable email. And we will send this whole user details to the front end. But before that, we also have to create a user route in the backend. For that, at the end, I will paste this code to save time. So what I did here is I created a route for /user. So in the backend, a separate route for /user will be created, and it will be a get method where it will get the user details from the Mongo store. And if there is a session created, then it will store the session user details as the response. Or else, if there is no session created, then it will send the 401 status code and the JSON message not authenticated. And in this user route, the server checks if request.session.user exists. If it does, it responds with the user information. If not, it responds with 401 status indicating that the user is not authenticated. This session management approach will ensure that user authentication and state management are handled efficiently. So let's save it. Since after the login, it's sending the user information to the front end. Now in the front end also we have to get the user information from the session. So inside the handle login function, what I will do is, if the result.data is success, then instead of navigating to the home, at first we will get the user details from the session. So instead of navigating to the home, I will again copy this axios.post, this thing, and I will paste it here. So it will try to get this particular backend URL, which is user. So if you remember, in the index.js, I have created this particular app.get function where it checks whether the session exists or not. If it exists, then it will send the user details. If not, it will send 401 status code. So in the backend, it will go to this localhost 3001/user, and instead of email password, I don't need this email password anymore. I will just type with credentials equals to true, and I will also paste this in the above axios.post login. With credentials true will help the CORS to bypass the cookies and session between the client and the server. The server must be configured to accept and process these credentials, and so is the client. So I have put with credentials true here and credentials true here also. So after getting the response from the backend, then response, now if response.data.user. So as you can see in the backend, I have sent this particular thing, which is response.session.user. If this session has some data, if the backend, which is the user route, sends some response which has some data in response, then we will navigate to home. And along with this navigation to home, we will also set the state to response.data.user. So this will set the session data to the home page also. Let's save it for now. Now we will display the user information on the home page after login. To do that, we will go to the home.jsx file, and here we will use a special hook called useLocation. UseLocation is used to access the state information about the current URL. So I will import useLocation from React Router DOM. Next, we will create the location object. So const location equals to use location. This hook will return the location object, which will include the current URL and any state data passed via navigation. So if you remember that we have created our session, as soon as we log in, our session will start and it will contain the user information in the current state. To get that information from the current URL, we will use the hook useLocation. Next, we will take a variable const user and store the user information inside this variable. And if the location is available, then only we will extract the user information. So this thing is called optional chaining ? Dot. It is used to safely access the user object within the state property of the location object. In case if the location.state or location.state.user is undefined, it will avoid throwing error and will just assign undefined to the user. Now we will extract the username from this user object. For that, we will use template literals from JavaScript. Inside the template literals, we will pass the user name value. So user.name. And we can just add this message, welcome home, this particular username. Now let's check whether we can log into our application and create a session or not. I am in my Vite application, and here I will log in using the details. If I go to my MongoDB Atlas, I can see that I have one name as Rajushree Guho and the email is r1@gmail.com. I have created a user already after signing up previously. So here I will enter this r1@gmail.com. This user I created previously by signing up. You can also create a user by signing up. And I'm logging in. As you can see, I can't log in. What's the problem? Let's inspect. This is the console. So as you can see, failed to load resource, the server responded with a status of 401. So why this is happening? See, there's an access error. So the problem starts from here, 401, unauthorized. Let's check our index.js file. So in the user 401 unauthorized, it sends only when there is no user present in the session. Let's check the login function. Okay, so what we are doing is we are sending the response success before storing the session information. So the front end is getting the success information and it is directly navigating to the home page, and the user is being saved in the session later. So it's not getting the user information. So what we have to do is we just have to cut this and paste it after storing the session information. So after creating this particular state in the MongoDB store, then only we will send this success response to the client side. Let's save it. Okay. Now let's click on this login form. And as you can see, welcome home Rajushree Guha is displayed. So this Rajushree Guha is my name and this is the name which is extracted from the MongoDB Atlas. And here inside the user credential, there should be a collection created named session. So if I refresh it, you can see sessions collection is created. So inside this, you can see a new document is created. This is the session and it stores the state of the user information which I currently logged in with. So the expiration date is also given 2024/7. This is the particular time. Okay, after 1 day this state or session will expire, and the cookie with the particular user information is stored in the session. As you can see, session equals to cookie colon this. Okay, this is the max age set, that is 1 day, and this is the expiry time. So this is how you can log in to your system using session. So this is how you create a session as you log in, and the unique identifier or the session ID is stored in a cookie on the client side, which is then used to retrieve the session data from the server side. And you can display the name on the client side as I have done. In the next video, I will show you how to log out from the session. As you can see, currently I am in my home page, so I am logged in. So I should not access this sign up form. But if I click on this sign up, I can again navigate to the sign up form, and I can again navigate to the login form, which should not be displayed while I am logged in. So in the next video, I will show you how to do that and how to finally log out of the session to again access this sign up and login form. So that's all for today. If you like my video, share it with your friends and family, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching my video. Have a nice day.